5,000.
And you are with CCTV, Cambridge Community Television, and Unsurpassable Justice, hosted by yours truly, Brother R.A., the brother who has a lot to say each and every day. I hope I haven't bit off more than I can chew. The day before, thanks. Yes, I'm just going to call it thanks. And let's just go ahead into the dial real quick. Right there, right? Okay. Page 74, accumulation. An opening in the storming sea. Gold deposited on bones. Once accumulation has begun, take care not to interfere. There is a fable about a pious man whose father had just died. A geomancer instructed the son to bury his father at the mouth of a sea cave. The sea opened at this spot only once in 100 years. And a family who utilized it would experience great fortune. Although he had misgivings about this unorthodox location, the son threw the casket into the waters at the indicated time. For weeks, the son doubted what he had done. He eventually went to a competing geomancer. Out of jealousy, advised the son to raise the casket. And the son did so. When the coffin was brought up and opened, the man saw that a fine layer of pure gold had already been deposited on his father's bones. A clear indication of the auspicious transformation that had begun. In regret, the son wanted to throw his father back in, but it was too late. There is no unremedying what had been done. The spiritual practice must be uninterrupted. We may be anxious because we see very little happening on a daily basis. But we must be patient until we can see the accumulation of our efforts yields. Self-cultivation means steady, gradual progress. To stop prematurely would be more disastrous than never having started at all. That was page 74 of 365 Tao, Accumulation. And here, let me show you this shot real quick. Did I show you the palatial suite shot? Make sure you see the whole remedy, the whole blah, blah, blah. But now, life, the ankh, the circle at the top of the stem. A 360-degree sphere uniting with the straight line, or the phallic, or the womb and the male, and the cross pieces are the umbilical cords to the children. So life and balance, life balanced and light as a feather. Ponder that. Here, let's go into breakthrough. Pay attention to breakthrough. We're dealing with, who are we? Lake shadows, color of cold, willow branches, weep ice, swan, raises dazzling in the sunlight. Swan rise, dazzling in the sunlight. After long self-cultivation, one's accumulated energies, one's accumulated energy reaches a threshold and then bursts out full, breathing and vibrant. Without the careful building of momentum, this moment of release would never have been possible. With long years of preparation and experience, the freeing of the soul will not be mere dissipation, but will be so strongly focused that it lifts one into a higher state of awareness. When one's spiritual energy emerges, it feels like a swan rising from the water. Once you have reached this level of stored energy, you will be a different person. On one hand, you may take genuine comfort in the point of attainment that you have made. On the other hand, you now see all the other possibilities that remain for you to explore. With the emergence of great possibilities comes the need for responsibility. If you diverge from your life's path in order to explore new vistas, remember how far you are flying. And remember to return at the proper times. Only you can decide how to arrange your life. once you are a strong flyer, you must still use wisdom to direct your flight. That was Breakthrough, page 75, and prior to that was Accumulation, page 74 of 365 Dial. I'm just tapping into the balance of a brother. And as I tap in to the balance of a brother, we're going to go ahead and do that on this ceremonial day. And, yeah. Now, I've read the dial, we hit the pipe, and I'm going to let you start listening to some of the conversations or thoughts that I put together in a blog, and we will continue, in understanding mind control. And as Kathy made reference on last week's show, truth makes us free. Life is the most powerful element in the universe. And we have been socially engineered to keep ourselves divided. We don't have free thought. Are we victims of mind control as we get ready to deal with the holidays? And profits are being made, and here, I'll shut up now. And oh, am I recording already? Damn. Video blog on 11/20/2018, 8:10 or so. RA does not have copyright permission for the music in the background. Oh, but it is on YouTube. And preparing for my Wednesday show the day before a quote-unquote holy day. And being one who's becoming more in touch with self, becoming balanced, and tapping in to my divinity, OMG. Yeah, can you imagine more melanin dominant people get together on a regular basis to hold hands and exchange energies or chi, have their melanin dominance unite? Yeah, right over there. I had Grammy and Daddy and Mama and Nana, and Daddy, right over there. They all sat there. Take care, Cam. Yeah! The young folks in a brother's life. OMG. Damn, I'll be 57. But, yeah, way back when I was a child, even before I was born, Mommy and Daddy had Daddy's mummy come over to my mother's house, to Nana's house, and they sat together. And I know growing up, we usually held hands around the table and made a prayer to an energy outside of ourselves. But why to an energy outside of ourselves? But it's Thanksgiving, so you give to yourself. That's what's fucking important. And fuck the verbiage. I mean, tomorrow's show is going to be about dolphins and the Cove. And the dolphins are supersonic hearing, whatever you want to call it, because I don't need to be confined. But they are in the oceans and able to hear sound. And that's how they know where to go and what to do. And you hear the beat, and melanin dominant people have a rhythm. And we deny ourselves by serving nonsense or energy outside of ourselves, as opposed to the energy within ourselves. Do you go deep, deep, deep within yourself? I got nothing to lose. I'm going deep, 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 deep within me. I can do it any way I want it. Because I am the one from top to bottom. And go deep within each joint of my vertebrae, each joint in my finger, each vein and each artery, all of it going down deep, 4,000 miles deep into the core of the earth. In a group of melanin dominant people, children of the sun, the S-U-N, going deep within self. Blog. Ari on his phone, doing blog TV. I gotta figure out how to put this shit up there, get this to go out live. But it will be on a program at some point. But melanin dominant people, do we have enough self-esteem? Or has it all dissipated away? And we believe in energy energies outside of ourselves, as opposed to believing within the energy within ourselves. Raise your self-esteem, your self-confidence, and believe in your melanin dominance and your liquid pineal gland. And your ability to focus and breathe and become cognizant and conscientious and sensitive at a higher level of relaxation. Even though the beat is there and it's vibrating through me, I'm able to reach that higher level of relaxation within myself. Self-esteem, self-confidence, and go, and get the family around that dead, slaughtered flesh meat that you would consume, and then all the white powdered sugar things on everything else, salt, bad for you, sugar's bad for you. But mind over matter, what you think matters. And still know that you have the ability to heal yourself, because you are the one. What you think matters. How you feel matters. I'm just filling you with energy and chi from me to you. Recording already? Damn. Video blog on 11/20/2018, 8:10 or so. I am that I am. Can we comprehend our divinity and see truly into ourselves? My mind is moving very fast. I have to script my content for tomorrow's show the day before Thanksgiving. And I'm reading the calendar. Make sure I take the sharecropping picture calendar to the show also discuss the Cove, read what happened on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week from the calendar. Do I need any? I'm not sure how much. I forgot the calendar, but something happened with JFK earlier this week on Monday, Thanksgiving. But I, as a divine energy, have to overlook the behavior of my calcified pineal gland child, my inbred child, and its behavior as Father Nature. I have to tap in to myself, acknowledging that it was my inbreeding that created the melanin recessive inbred mutant albino with a calcified pineal gland. That hardening, that calcification of the liquid eye disrupts the communication with the universe and with the environment. In reading the Kemetan and understanding the one line. And I'm putting my Lego pieces in place and tapping into my mind, which is divine. Father Nature, I have to oversee. Let me jump into the Cove real quick. Time is limited. 57 minutes for Brother R.A. isn't quite long enough. I'll get into the Cove a little bit later. I forgot about this aspect here. Let's bring in Dr. Len Jeffries into my Len Jeffries. I did the interview 3/2/2000 on a radio station. Here, let me shut up and just play it. Good Thursday evening. You're listening to Black Talk Radio, the on-air study group. Yes, with none other than Nina La Negra. And yes, yours truly, Brother R.A. The brother has a lot to say each and every day. Anyway, nowhere else can you get Black Talk Radio in the Boston market but right here on WMBR Cambridge with more black resistance. So you know what you gotta do. Keep it locked first from the left. Now, pick up a telephone, call a brother, a sister, or let others in lockdown know the show that keeps you in the know is on the down low. Yes, Black Talk Radio, 88.1 FM, WMBR Cambridge, or on the internet, http://wmbr.mit.edu. That's right. And, you know, when you listen to a show that gives you information, you better get your pen and paper. Keep it handy, because we drop much knowledge up in here. And we will tonight, for sure. We'd like to thank our underwriters, Black Library. Black Library is a bookseller that specializes in African-American literature. Black Library is located at Pushcart in Dudley every day of the week. Yes, and the weather's nice. Brother Lloyd told me he was out there. Yeah, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., or you can check him out on the web, theblacklibrary.com, theblacklibrary.com, and also underwriting Black Talk Radio, the Cambridge Center for Adult Ed. They provide a unique learning experience. Located at 42 Brattle Street, Harvard Square, Cambridge. The Cambridge Center goal is to provide high-quality programs to the community we serve. Their phone number is 617-547-6789. That's 547-6789. Or check them out on the web also, www.ccae.org. The Cambridge Center for Adult Ed. And Nina and I will be speaking there, March 22nd, from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Yes, that's right. We will be doing a lecture, a media literacy forum. Does media perpetuate black self-hate? Oh, boy, that's going to be fun. March 22nd, 8 to 10, 42 Brattle Street. Give them a call. Oh, yeah.
I know I'm gonna spend all my money down at Q's juke joint.
Can I get in here?
Man, if you don't let me in this place, I'll turn it out.
Oh, and we're going to turn out Cambridge right now. Oh, yes, we are. But before we get into that interview, isn't it interesting that they talk about take the guns out of the community? We need to get more gun control. Yet cops are shooting black men in the back of the head, or, they're getting acquitted from all charges, shooting a black man 42 times. Nowhere else but in America. Oh, well. Hey, what else happens in America? Maybe at the most esteemed institution in the world, the largest nonprofit, the intellectual mecca of the world. Are they swaying the opinions of people with lies and miseducation? We're talking about the BBC, $50 million funded Wonders of the African World, hosted by Skip the Facts Gates. Well, what facts were skipped? Let's jump right on into that conversation with world-renowned Dr. Professor Len Jeffries. Welcome to Black Talk, Doctor.
Hotep, brother. Certainly a pleasure to be a part of your radio family tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So the question is, Dr. Jeffries, folks have been inquiring. They've seen the Wonders of the African World. It's on PBS. It's a noted station for high intellectual, academic, quality programming. And there are black folks that are coming against Skip Gates. Why? Are there lies in this $50 million funded BBC project?
Well, it's much more than that. The European world, using their mouthpieces and their media outlets, such as the BBC, and in many instances the public broadcast system, has made serious attempts to reverse or cloud or confuse the enormous truths of the African world experience that our scholars have brought forth over this last 100 and certainly 50 years, and certainly in the last 30 years. And so BBC has tried many times over the last several years to produce documentaries that put the blame for slavery on African peoples, that question the relationship between Egypt and Nubia and Ethiopia's role in history. And so, but it didn't go over. So they needed a black face on their vehicles of trying to destroy the African truth. And you found a ready and willing intellectual entrepreneur. That's how he describes himself.
So, wait a minute.
Skip the Fat Gates, who said he was ready to be that mouthpiece.
So you're saying the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, tried before in blaming Africans for the African slave, for the
That's
European
right.
slave trade.
I've been on programs with the BBC, and people in London who know me forced the BBC to put me on the programs. It was a 4-continent hookup between Europe, Africa, and three-continent hookup, Europe, Africa, and America. And it was a program that covered the Ashanti Kingdom and Dahomey, that covered the D'Souza's, the same type of program, same type of references that Skip Gates talked about in this last program the BBC has been trying to do for years. They even cited the same instances. The same people were interviewed. They recycled the same stuff they had put out before.
But this time they only did it with blackface.
Yes, they did it with a smiling black face. And that was my friend Henry Louis Gates.
Your friend. Is he your friend, Dr. Len Jeffries?
Well, on the personal level, he's an academic in the area of black studies, and but we have to have our differences, and I think now they have to be aired publicly because he's taking such a prominent posture, being pumped up by the European system of white supremacy at the head of the class, an undeserving position for him because he hasn't done the work in the field of Africa or even African American studies. So he has no track record of scholarly work in this field. He is the first to admit it. I bought his book on the wonders of the African world. I bought 2 copies, one for my wife, who knows Dr. Henry Louis Skip the Fat Gates. He was on her dissertation committee from Yale. He signed the book for her, and then he signed the book for me, saying fondly and respectfully, we respect our differences, and so I am fondly and respectfully airing my differences with the brother, if we can call him that, tonight.
And you were actually, you came up with CMOTAP, the committee to, help me out here, Nina.
The committee to eliminate media offensive to African people.
Right. And then what I wanted to say to finish my last statement was that in signing the book that is now the accompanying book for the PBS BBC series, The Wonders of the African World, the opening sentence says, by Skip Gates, that I have taught courses in African literature, but I am not a scholar of Africa. And I say, amen. The truth shall set us free. I am not a scholar of Africa.
So if he's not a scholar of Africa, where did the information come from that was put into the BBC Wonders of the African World? If he didn't do the research and reading, how did he acquire such knowledge?
It appears to have been the traditional materials recycled by the system of white supremacy to create confusion and division. Confusion in the sense that scholars such as Dr. Shakanta Diop, Dr. Chancellor Williams, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Joseph Ben Yakinen, and a whole host of others have worked hard, Professor John Jackson, have worked hard to show the relationship between Ethiopia, Nubia, and Egypt, part of Nile Valley civilization. And Henry Louis Gates, following the pattern and the script outlined by the Europeans, decided to maintain the divisions and to dismiss the relationship between Nubia and Egypt, and to create a whole another smokescreen around Ethiopia by talking about the covenant of the Ark of the Covenant. And so he created a little bit of a Hollywood Raiders of the Lost Ark syndrome by acting as if he was hunting up this Ark of the Covenant. And in doing so, he did not deal with the depth and the enormity of Ethiopian civilization over thousands of years. And so, obviously, it was designed to poo-poo the Ark, and people say he was very disrespectful in the various instances where he was trying to reference and discover the Ark. And so I saw Ethiopians and met them, and I have been meeting them, that have been hurt by the way this cavalier approach to their history. So the strength and the significance of Ethiopian history was lightly dealt with. Nubian history, although some of its highlights were shown, was not properly dealt with, and Egyptian history was dismissed.
Ancient Egypt's history was dismissed
as part of Africa, and it's not one of the wonders of Africa. He spent no time talking about the great pyramid building, the Sphinx, the great temples, the great literature. One of the most enormous cradles of civilizations of the world was dismissed.
But doctor, don't you know Egypt is in the Middle East? It's not part of Africa.
And that's the plan. That was when I evaluated the curriculum of the state of New York. It had been revised in 1987, and still in the guideline for global studies, they said they weren't going to deal with Egypt in Africa. They were going to deal with it in another section of the world, and that other section was the Middle East. And then when you got to the Middle East section, they dealt with it superficially with no content, no reference to the science, to the archaeology, to the monumental building, to the statecraft, no reference to the medicine, no mention to the concept of the oneness of God, to the moral and ethical principles. So they said they took it out of Africa and put it in another part of the world, the so-called Middle East, and then gave it no content. So this is the process that the Europeans are going through in the face of this enormous history that has exploded on the scene in terms of this African truth. And it involves the trilogy of knowledge that it involves, I always emphasize, and that trilogy of knowledge is what I call the primacy of the African experience. And number one, in thinking in terms of a pyramid, and thinking in terms of a triangular side of the pyramid, and thinking in terms of thesis, antithesis, synthesis, the initial thrust of human development involves origin. And so there is an origin of humankind. And with the scientific and historical data that has been unveiled over the last 100 years, particularly the last 50 years with great scientific advances, it is clear that there's an African origin of humanity. That's number one. Number two, and that goes back millions of years with the fossil finds. Number two, as humankind evolved into large brain human and our modern humanity referenced by Homo sapiens sapien, that drama, as well as the earlier drama, takes place in Africa. And so Homo sapiens sapien emerges, and you get what we can refer to as the evolution of society. Humankind learning to live in families and communities and learning to reach for higher levels of development. And then number three, so there's an African origin and there's an African evolution of humanity and society. And number three, the synthesis of that origin and that evolution is the African cradle of civilization, the cradle of civilization in the Nile Valley, which no matter what Europeans might say, or Henry Louis Gates, skip the fact, Gates might say, is in Africa. And the Nile Valley comes together as a connectedness between the Blue Nile and the White Nile coming out of the lakes of Central Africa, and then the Atbara coming from the highlands of Ethiopia, the Tano River, and they all come together to produce the Nile that flows down through Egypt after going through Ethiopia and Nubia. And that Nile Valley producing this enormous culture and civilization can be referenced by a blessed ecology, and that blessed ecology allowed for this development of high culture and civilization for thousands of years, over a 5,000 to 6,000 year period. This great culture emerged, and it was emerging with African peoples, not with Semites, not with Greeks, not with Turks, not with Europeans. And so it is this enormous truth, the African origin, the African evolution, the African cradle of civilization, that we stand on. And this is what we refer to as African primacy, the firstness of things African. We're not talking about superiority and inferiority, but we are talking about scientific historical data which has established beyond a doubt the African primacy in the human experience.
Nina La Negra, you have a question for Dr. Len Jeffries?
Oh, I got more than one. First of all, I am just so pleased that I'm actually on the same airways with Dr. Len Jeffries, who I have admired from afar for a long time.
Well, it's my pleasure to be a part of the team here.
Well, glad to have you, brother. Glad to have you. And I hope that we are taking some small step for mankind here today to right the wrongs of the wonders of the African world that was financed by the BBC. see. And in looking at that, you touched on so many things that we could go in all these directions about, but we don't have enough time here today to get to this African trilogy that you talk about.
But we'll come back to your airway, so
yes.
This won't be the last.
Okay, good. We're going to hold you to that, you know.
Yes.
So
and I'll be back up into Boston because my visit to the Boston, the Fine Arts Museum of Boston was too short.
Yes.
I spent a good part of Saturday there a couple of weeks ago after the Simultap group went back.
Yes.
And it's an extraordinary African collection on Nubia in particular and Egypt. And it's amazing that someone like Henry Skip the Fact Gates has not spent more time at his own cultural center.
In his own backyard.
In his own backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And he's up there with the big folks on Beacon Hill. It would seem to me that once in a while, on a Sunday afternoon or something, he would stroll down to the museum or take some of his friends to the museum. But for someone to admit, I was embarrassed for him. As I said, he's my friend now. I was embarrassed for my friend saying for the first time he was seeing black pharaohs, and he didn't know that these pharaohs existed or the pyramids in Nubia existed. He learned of that last year. And so I said, oh, my goodness, why didn't they edit that out? Because that's an admission that you can't make if you're a so-called scholar or even if you're an intellectual entrepreneur trying to make money on the scholarship. But
or an academic celebrity.
That's right. You can't let that go across the airways because Taharqa, who he was referencing, was part of the digs that the Harvard excavation team under George A. Reisner dug up from the Nile in their digs in 1915 and 16.
Oh, my.
And these famous digs of Taharqa's tomb, the greatest of the ancient pharaohs of Nubia, were put on permanent display in 1992. And Henry Louis Gates came up to lead the Black Studies Department at Harvard, 91-92 academic year. So the Nubian finds were put on permanent display at the same time Henry Louis Gates came up to be the leading light of the Black Studies world. And in those 8 years, he never had a chance to go see the Black Pharaoh, Taharqa, that's right in his own museum.
Oh, heck no. You know, when you're busy courting corporate dollars, you don't have time for scholarship.
I can't believe it. Even accidentally, he should have bumped into this material. Somebody should have told him there's 100 images of Taharqa in the little swabis that they have that were found. They found 1,000 of them in the tombs. And it was George A. Reisner, the leading American archaeologist who had a Harvard connection, who made all of these discoveries and who changed the whole process of excavation and making it more scientific and more systematic. For Henry Louis Gates to slide down the tomb of Taharqa and act as if he's discovering this, and there are no lines of tourists outside, and he's discovering it, and not mention that the entrance into the pyramid of Taharqa was dug out by Reisner, who was a Harvard-related expert who died at the foot of the pyramids in 1942, spending almost 40 or so years in the Harvard camp in Egypt. For someone to come strolling into the tomb and acting as if this is a great discovery of his, he should have acknowledged the great work done by the scholars before him. Now, I don't mind him dismissing Dr. Diop because that's an African scholar, or Dr. Ben, or Dr. Clark. But to dismiss the great white scholar shows that there is a faulty process of academic development, that this brother has no discipline in the areas of history and political science and in archaeology, and he's a literary critic, and he possibly should stay in that area.
Well, I don't know.
I call that high-tech plagiarism.
Wouldn't that make you question his literary work as well?
Well, I think we need to raise a lot of questions because he said we don't need new pharaohs, but it appears that he's trying to be the new pharaoh on the block.
You mean
without a background?
Question his writings in the New York Times and question the articles in the Wall Street Journal?
Well, the New Yorker magazine is, I understand, edited by a friend of his, and so he gets a lot of play, but we have to start now looking at the content and the analysis because there's some serious faulty analyses. I don't see a systems analysis in the work that he presents. I don't see historical background. I don't see scientific facts. Even the great discoveries that he exposed, there's no attempt to have an in-depth understanding, even superficially, of the great discoveries. You can't go to Kerma which is one part of the Nile Valley that he investigated in Nubia, and go to an archaeological dig where a European has been digging for 30-something years, and he's digging up a city that goes back 4,000 years, older than anything in Europe. And then he's telling you that this city that he's digging up and been digging up for years is sitting on top of two other cities that go back 5,000 years.
Oh.
You can't have a minute of reference to that and then skip on to something else, and then having us focus for many, many minutes on him taking a sand bath and on him pushing a vehicle out of the sand. Those things should have been cut out of a serious documentary, and a focus on the discovery of Kerma and the fact that there are two cities under the city being excavated, and it's in Nubia going back 2,000 years. So 2,000 BC at least. And so older than Tahaka. And so, hey, this is serious.
Well,
but I have to smile. I said, well, look, people are not interested in the seriousness because it's been financed by all of these corporations and media outlets. And you have to say, well, why isn't the scholarly community raising hell? Because they want to keep the confusion of the Nile Valley in people's minds, because if it's clear, Africa will establish its primacy without a doubt.
well, that's a scary thing, I'm sure. If you would, Dr. Jeffries, could you talk about the significance of an organization like CIMOTAP when we are seeing now the significance of writing things down as the ancient Nubians did? The writing on the wall, so to speak, is speaking to us beyond the grave and communicating something a little bit different than what Mr. Skip the Facts would have us believe.
Well, yes, the spiritualness of Africa's creation.
I guess that's the end of that clip. Yeah, that's right. I'm converting this information from that. This was the cassette. Dr. Len Jeffries' interview with Nina La Negra on Black Talk Radio. The date of that interview was 3/2/2000. It's 2018. Did I just not do last week the CIA Transformation of America? The true life story of a CIA mind-controlled slave? Where is the media that projects melanin dominance, liquid balance? Where is the media that would allow black people or melanin dominant people with a liquid pineal gland? You talk about the top of the pyramid on the back of your dollar bill, the all-seeing eye, a liquid pineal gland, not a calcified, hardened pineal gland. Our children are being misinformed, miseducated, and taught to hate themselves, going to church, singing Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. This may be cynical, but the Equalizer. Did I make reference to the Equalizer last week? Denzel was very anal retentive, and every time had to be a specific way. Well, I'm a perfectionist, anal retentive, media professional, and this whole series was what? Tell me who I am. I can't have a calcified pineal gland tell me, number one, tell me who I am. I'm talking about having an energy as a child of the sun, absorbing the frequencies, absorbing all of this knowledge and information, being a tree trunk as I'm practicing in Tai Chi. I'm the vein. In that meditation, when you see me go, I go 4,000 miles deep to the crust of the core of the center of the earth in my meditation. Leave the negativity, burning, melting in the melting rock of the center of the core of the earth. Allow the positivity, the energy, the frequency of the sun. Why is the center of the earth, the third planet away from the sun, why is the center of it hot? What is that about? What kind of energy are you allowing to rise up through the balls of your feet? How many miles of veins and arteries are there in your body? I can't get a spit. Is it 775 miles, 75,000, 7,500, 75,000? I'm like, how many miles of veins? I get different answers. The number of miles of veins and arteries. Because the vein, the artery is from the heart through all of your body, your chi, your energy. And the vein is what comes back. And as a child of the sun living on the planet Earth, and we're killing ourselves. Uh-oh, I just zoned out. Here, if I can bring this up real quick and end on this note here.